Now we're just heading out on a scouting mission in all this snow, public land, and it's public land hunted actually is in Michigan. And you know, it brings up how to hunt in the snow. And I've enjoyed hunting in the snow since the 80s. It's always been one of my favorite times to hunt. Some of my greatest memories involve hunting in snow throughout the years. I think of a time in 2010, I was after a giant 8-point that was pushing 170 inches. He was 6 years old, we thought. And hunting in the snow. I actually didn't have a great ending. I had an opportunity at him, missed him point blank with a muzzleloader, but in the snow. And I was hunting by the snow rules that I've experienced and that have worked for me throughout the years. You know, right now we're in this snow. And what's great about the snow, first off, is that it really pushes a deer, especially when you get snow. We scouted yesterday too, and we're getting into snow depths that are around our knees at times. And it really pushes a deer into their snow habitat. Now, of course, snow habitat is different to me than any other habitat because they only use it during that time. A lot of times we're hunting out in the marshes, swamps, pushes a lot of deer into conifer and other lowland areas that feature some type of thermal protection. Conifers, in our case, we're hunting in spruce swamps and fir, cedar. And so we're getting into areas where deer can not only escape the hunting pressure of an opening day of gun season, which takes place tomorrow, but they can also escape the winds and the cold and have some reasonable form of warmth and protection from the snow and from the cold weather that comes from the snow. So we find that deer are getting out of the open hardwoods. There's a lot of hunters in the open hardwoods around here. They're putting out bait piles a lot and they're moving around the hardwoods to get at hunting stands and locations. So it's really pushing deer into more protective cover. So that's one of the main things. That's a big thing, that deer are on the move. They're on the move. They're hungry in these colder temperatures. They're getting into thermal protection. It's all about energy consumptions. So whether it's adding more energy by feeding or conserving more energy by getting into the conifers, that's taking place right now. But also some other factors with snow. You know, when snow comes in and the weather fronts that come through with that, of course, I love hunting cold fronts. And what I find is with that cold coming in, it creates several different opportunities before, during, and after the storm rolls through. Now, depending on the severity of the weather at the time, before or during can be a wash, or it can be a great opportunity to go out and sit. When you first have those easterly winds coming, when major fronts are coming, you usually have easterly winds on the front side. A lot of people think, you know, these big fronts come through, it's a heavy northwest wind, cold front. That's just not the case. That northwest wind is a part of that, but only at a certain part of the time. In the beginning of that front, you have those easterly winds. So it gives you a great opportunity, typically in the evening, for example, to focus on evening patterns because those deer know that that front's coming. I believe they feel that easterly wind shift, they feel that change in temperature that's dropping, and they hit the fields. A lot of people say, well, it's because of that falling barometric pressure. I don't think the deer have a barometric pressure device in their head. I could be wrong, but I do know that they can feel the easterly winds changing, the wind changing, and they can feel the temperature drop. They can see the skies clouding up. So they have a lot of physical things that are very tangible that they can actually relate to and affect, just like you or I. If we have changing easterly winds, if we have changing wind directions, cold temperatures, and we have to live by these weather conditions, then we'd be able to feel those too and make it. I don't think that there's a magical thing they can put their finger up and feel that the barometric pressure is changing. So the barometric pressure may be changing, maybe not, doesn't matter. If it's easterly winds coming in, it's clouding up and the temperature is changing, and especially dropping compared to what it was the day before. Regardless of what the pressure is doing, I would go out and sit in your favorite stand. Now eventually, whether that's the morning and you're hunting near bedding areas and maybe a browse area that deer can get into, an acorn flat, some random apple trees, remote apple trees, fruit source, maybe a great white oak stand. Those are areas you could focus on with those easterly winds coming in and that big front on the horizon. Those deer are going to be on their feet and feeding. If it's during the middle of the day, again, focus next to their bedding areas. And if it's in the evening, find that favorite food source and hit that food source. Now that food source, if those winds are going to be coming quick and the temperature's dropping and the snow's going to be flying and there's going to be more blizzard conditions coming within a few hours, think about that where you might sit in the evening. Those deer do not want to be caught out in the open. They can feel that change coming. And so focus on hidden food sources, an area that's back in the corner, and that's a great way to start that hunt with that front coming in with that snow. Now during the snow, what typically happens, there's those easterly winds coming in, northeast, southeast. Those are the calm winds. Those are the winds of change. Something's on the horizon. The deer can sense that. They see that with that wind change. They can feel it. Sometime in there, a lot of times you'll experience a hole in the weather. So let's say those easterly winds took place all night. All of a sudden it's during the middle of the day. It's almost like there's a calming effect. You could have snow with that on the front side, but eventually as that weather is spinning through, the winds are going to switch, change to that northwest, west-northwest, northerly airflow, and that's going to come crashing through. That's when the blizzard conditions take place. That's when the front blows through. That's when the winds are the highest. The deer do not want to be caught in that area. So you have the front side, those snows start. That's a lot of times that steady light snow where you can be out there and hunt. At some point those winds switch around. What I find is there's an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours where there's a hole in the weather. Great time to head to a stand, especially if that coincides with morning movement, maybe a midday browse feeding opportunity where you have a lot of daytime browse that deer can hit and food sources that are remote next to the bedding areas. And if that takes place in the evening, then really consider this is a great time to hunt that hole in the weather. The winds of change are coming. That northwest wind's going to come smashing through, but you might have that hole in the opportunity. And again, make sure that it's somewhere somewhat remote next to bedding, because those deer know that something big is coming by those winds that they're feeling and that temperature drop, and they're likely to pick a spot that doesn't move them a quarter mile out of their bedding areas so that they can get caught in that weather. And then of course, after that snow comes through, we have bright blue sky today. Again, it doesn't matter if the barometric pressure is high or low right now. I don't really care. The point is that the snow already came through. We're experiencing calming conditions. It was in the teens last night. It's still in 20 degrees right now, 20, 25. It's cold. And this is an outstanding time for deer to be on their feet. The snow is going to start dropping off these branches, which brings another point. Tomorrow it's going to warm up to about 35 to 40. As you get those warming temperatures, the snow is going to stop sticking to these branches. The snow starts dropping. Makes a lot of noise when it's compact and wet in the woods. And I feel that actually pushes some deer sometimes. It can have either effect where it pushes deer because it's dropping real noisy like rain. But once the snow clears out of the branches and it's dropped down, and you really have that cold, calm condition where the woods are quiet and it's cold after the front, then to me those deer really want to feed. They really want to move. There's less stress in the woods. There's not a lot of noise. It's cold, calm, clear. Again, it's all about energy consumption this time of year. They're going to want to hit to the feed, and they're going to want to put on a lot of energy that they can use for the next storm that's coming through. It's that roller coaster all winter long. And after the front blows through, whether the snow is still sticking to the trees or not, and it's cold, and you have that calm effect where there's less noise in the woods, then I find that deer really move heavily in these types of conditions. We're going to be blessed with those types of conditions when we head out to the woods tomorrow morning for the opening day of 2018 Michigan rifle season. And I think it's going to be the perfect storm of deer opportunity, where we're sitting in a blind in a quiet area. We're down in a low thicket marshland of spruce swamp and cedar swamps and tag alder, and we're in an area where I expect a lot of deer movement, not only because of the snow and the weather conditions that are taking place, but by the fact that we have a lot of hunters in the woods within 3/4 mile to a mile of us. We're getting way back in. We're hiking in again in that knee deep snow and getting back in, and we're waiting for that movement to come our way. We're waiting for the deer to come in there because of this weather, seeking thermal opportunities, and then also to get away from the hunters that are more out in the open marshes, out in the open hardwoods. And this snow front that came through set up some great opportunities on the front side of this front, deer in the front, as that wind is switching around, creates that hole. And of course on the back side is my favorite, and we're heading out to the woods tomorrow. And if you hunt snow in those conditions and focus on those periods of time when the snow is coming, seeking energy efficient and energy conservation techniques where you're hunting food, hunting the energy consumption, and making sure the deer can actually hold on to that energy by seeking thermal cover, then you'll be on a great track for hunting in the snow and making sure that you fill your tag under these great changing cold weather snow conditions.